الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. We continue, rather inshallah bi'idhnillah, this will be the last lesson, Kitab al-Siyam, for the chapter, because I think after we complete this hadith we will finalize the chapter and then the chapter will be concluded after we cover this hadith, which we're going to speak about today. If we go back to Buloogh Al-Maraam, as we come down to the last narration, but before we cover the last narration, if you look in your books, I forgot today's date. Today's May the 12th, 7:05 p.m. Today's the 12th, right? 2019 of the Gregorian calendar, which coincides with now the 7th of Ramadan. So tonight will be the 7th of Ramadan. I think today the 6th. Today's the 6th day. Well, tonight will be the 7th night of Ramadan Mubarak. Man, we're in the 7th night already. Wow. طيب. If we go Buloogh Al-Maraam, Kitab al-Siyam, before we end the chapter, we were taking the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, and it says that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam كان يصبح جنبا من جماع ثم يغتسل ويصوم والحديث متفق عليه. وزاد مسلم في حديث أم سلمة ولا يقضي. On the authority of both our mothers, Aisha and Salama, he says that the Messenger of Allah used to come upon the morning, meaning in the month of Ramadan, from being intimate with his family, and he would be in a state of major impurity. Then he would make a ghusl, and then he would start his fast. And that narration is agreed upon in Al-Bukhari and Muslim. And if you'll find that Muslim brought another narration on the authority of our mother Salama, she said, وَلَا يَقْضِي. He would not make it up. He would not make it up. Like, we discussed this narration. And we said that this narration is an indication for what, everyone? It's an indication to show how valid, or the validity of one's fast for the one who wants to start his fast at the time for Fajr, meaning before Fajr comes in. Kids, you guys have to probably go in the corner over there. Just go in the corner where the fan is. That's all. Both of you. Just go over in the corner. All of you. Just in the corner over there by the fan. طيب. We said for a person that was intimate, for example, his wife, or let's just say he had a wet dream, or what have you, or she had a wet dream. Or if one, well, not these days at times, if they had a concubine, if that was to happen during the month of Ramadan, at night, after the sun set, and at that particular time, as we know, everything before the sunset was impermissible, now becomes permissible, from eating and drinking and intimacy. For one was to come upon that night, like we said, and he was intimate with his wife, and he woke up before the time of Fajr, or let's just say he woke up and it is the time for Fajr, even though we know it's the sunnah for one to what? To eat suhoor or consume his pre-dawn meal, which will make the fast easy. But let's just say he woke up for Fajr and he was in a state of major impurity from being intimate. And he woke up for the time of Fajr. And we just said, just to make everything summarized and concise, if that time was to come in and he was in a state, is his fast valid? We said based upon this narration, this would necessitate what? The validity of one's fast, and that it's still valid, and that it is not what? That he's still in the state of fast, and that it is not considered for something that will nullify his or her fast. We talked about also the narration, or the question, the question if a person was in the morning time and he was totally unaware and he was intimate with his wife, and the time came in and he was in the middle of the act, we said if the person refrains as soon as knowledge reaches him, then he still continues his fast. And he would just have to make a ghusl and continue his fast, and his fast would be valid due to him being ignorant of the time. That's if in the state of total unawareness, like he's totally heedless of the time, just totally in a state of inadvertence and heedlessness. طيب. So we said that this narration is a clear indication to show what, everyone? That number one, if you look in the narration, it indicates that fasting or one's fast is valid if he comes upon a morning in a state of major impurity, which is in a state of janaba. Fajr comes in, he did not make a ghusl yet. All he has to do is what? Have the intention for fast, and his fast is valid. It's that simple. It's not complicated, and we're not going to try to make things complicated. All he has to do now is make a ghusl due to this hadith. As the Messenger of Allah, he used to reach him the time of Fajr in Ramadan, and he was in a state of major impurity. He would fast, then he would make a ghusl after the time of the prayer came in, and then after Fajr. But it shows clearly the indication of what? That fasting is not a being in a state of purity, meaning before the time of Fajr comes in, is not a prerequisite or condition for validating one's fast. A person could be in a state, for example, of major impurity, or he could be in a state of minor impurity, or he could be in a state of wudu. It does not affect the validity of what? Of his fast or her fast. As long as, like we said, it's not at the time where Fajr came in yet, and he was in that state, like for example, and he was intimate with his wife, of course, then it does not affect him. Even after Fajr comes in, let's just say, and he had a wet dream. He went to sleep after he prayed, he laid back down, and we know if he wakes up and he had a wet dream, or her having a wet dream, it does not affect either one of them's what? Fast. Because it was done unintentionally, of course, as we know. طيب. But this narration clearly shows that what? For number one, another from the benefits extracted from this hadith, it shows that one could be intimate with his family after the sun goes down. Because it clearly says in the hadith, what everyone, if you see, he came upon the morning in Ramadan from intimacy. So it shows that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be intimate with his wives or his family after the sun went down. And this hadith is a clear indication of that. This narration here is a clear indication of that. And it hints towards the meaning of the ayah which comes in Surah Al-Baqarah, where it says, فَالْآنْ بَاشِرُوهُنَّ وَابْتَغُوا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ من الخيط الأسود من الفجر ثم أتم الصيام إلى الليل. It says clearly in the ayah, which is in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 187, clearly agrees with this narration. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He says, for now, be intimate with them and seek what your Lord has written for you, and eat and drink until the white thread becomes clear and distinct from the black thread of the time of Fajr. Then complete your fast to the sunset or to the evening when the sun sets. As we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed one to eat and drink and be intimate until the time of Fajr. And it is not a prerequisite that he has to come upon the morning in a state of minor impurity or major impurity, or even in the state of tahara, or in the state of purification. This narration is clear and it's frank, And likewise, it's in total agreement with the ayah that in order for one to validate his fasting, it is not a prerequisite or condition for one to be in a state of purification, as it clearly indicates in this particular narration. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Even though we know, after one, walillahi alhamd, in our religion and in the religion of Islam, it is complete and it is comprehensive. This narration shows, for number two, we already discussed that is permissible to be intimate during the night. Is that the hadith clearly indicates that. Also, number three is that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ sometimes would go to sleep and he would not make a ghusl after intimacy. That's another indication of the hadith. Another indication of the hadith is that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ would sleep and sometimes he would not make a ghusl. He would sometimes not make a ghusl, to show the permissibility of it. After a person is intimate with his wife or her wife, with his wife, and after he was intimate with a spouse, that sometimes he would not make a ghusl. He would just sleep. Even though we have narrations that shows it is more virtuous and better. That one, if he's to be intimate, that he will make wudu, or to make a ghusl after he's intimate with his family. But in certain circumstances, if one was to do it, and he fell asleep after being intimate, then there's no problem with that due to this hadith, which clearly shows that sometimes the Messenger of Allah, like we said, will go to sleep in the state of major impurity, which is a clear indication in the narration, right, everyone? It said that he would come upon the morning in a state of what? Of janaba, in a state of major impurity. So, you'll find from the Imam, even the great Imam, Ibn Fawzan, Hafidhahullah wa ra'ah, that he mentioned and said, يجوز له ينام من غير اغتسال أن الجنوب يجوز له ينام وعليه الجنابة من غير اغتسال ولكن كونه يغتسل أو يتوضأ قبل النوم أفضل ولكن لا يجب عليه ذلك فلو نام وعليه جنابة إلى طلوع الفجر فهذا أمر جائز. To the end of it. He said the indication that major impurity is permissible for him to sleep without him making a ghusl. If the person is in this major state of impurity, he can sleep, even though he's in this state. However, him making a ghusl or wudu before sleep is better. However, it is not obligatory. If he's to go to sleep and it's upon him, or he's in a state of major impurity all the way up to the time of Fajr, then this affair is permissible. There's nothing wrong with that. طيب. So that's to sum up that purification is not a prerequisite in validating one's fasting at all. It's not a prerequisite. To validate one's fast, that one has to be in a state of purity or minor impurity or major impurity for his fast to be valid. If he wakes up before the time of Fajr, or let's just say at the time of Fajr, and he went to sleep with his niyyah, and he woke up in that state after being intimate, then he does not have to what? He does not have to rush and jump in the shower. Rather, he can start his fast first and then wake up to take a shower in preparation for the prayer. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Jay. Let's move to the last hadith. When you say Surah Al-Baqarah. The last hadith, everyone. On the authority of our mother Aisha radiallahu anha, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من مات وعليه الصيام صام عنه وليه متفق عليه. On the authority of our mother Aisha radiallahu anha, that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, so whoever dies and is upon him fasting, then his wali fast in his place, meaning someone in his family or someone of his loved ones or what have you will fast in his place or fast for him. Will fast for him. How do you translate it in your book, everyone, just out of curiosity? His inheritors, his heirs, his heirs, meaning those who inherit from him. Jayyid. It's a sama anhu waliyuhu, meaning his heirs or those who inherit from his estate, meaning his family. His family. This narration is agreed upon. Tayyib. Before we start and discuss this hadith, all we have to do is return to what we discussed a couple of months ago in regards to the one who dies or passes away, and what do they benefit from after their death. It's the same matter, what we discussed about 2 months ago, approximately, maybe 3 months. We talked about how the one who's deceased, the one who dies, he benefits from 4 things, as we summarize. After one's death, he benefits from, number 1, meaning from the living. How do the living benefit the deceased? How? Number 1, we discussed from previous class, number 1 is dua. Generally. Dua of the Muslim for another Muslim who passed away, the one who's deceased benefits from their supplication for them, of forgiveness and what have you. That's number 1. Number 2, we discuss qada wali al-mayyit sawm an-nadri anhu. Number 2, we said last classes, like we said, we spoke about this, elaborated on it about 3 months ago, approximately. We discussed about that. Tayyib. The second one is the one who's deceased, that they made a vow which is called siyam an-nadhr. Siyam, the fasting of nadhr, which is to take a vow to Allah that you will fast a certain amount of days, in which you made obligatory from yourself, not the fact that Allah made it obligatory. Just to sum it up, number 2 is that your wali or your heirs or the one who inherits from you after your death, that you make up their what? Their fast, meaning a specific type of fast called siyam an-nadhr. Nadhr means taking a vow or oath to fast a certain amount of days. So for example, oh Allah, if you cure my sick, then it's upon me for you that I fast 10 days straight. That is called siyam an-nadhr, where you made it obligatory upon yourself. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not make it obligatory upon you. So now, if the wali or the one who's your heirs or in your family was to carry out that obligation, then it will fulfill the duty. If the one who's in your family does it for you, even after your death. So if you want to sum it up and say, number 2, the deceased benefit by 1, fasting, the fasting of what? Of an oath after their death for them. That's the second. The third thing that the dead or the deceased benefits by, as we discussed, is someone paying off their debts. Someone paying off their debts. So if a Muslim has a debt and it's upon him to pay it off after his death, as we know, if he has an estate or tarikah, if he has a money or inheritance, or if he has an estate that he left behind, then it is taken from his what? His estate to pay off his debts. And if he doesn't have an estate, then likewise, it's incumbent upon his heirs or the one who inherits from him to pay it off for him. That they should pay it off for him or her. And they will benefit from that in their grave. So that's the third thing that we discussed. The fourth thing is what, everyone? Is the righteous actions of the child. The righteous action of a righteous child, of a righteous child, because I have to say that. That's very important. The righteous actions of a righteous child also benefits the deceased after their death. Did we mention there was a fifth thing? Does anybody remember? Was there a fifth thing? Huh. Jayyid. The fifth thing is the knowledge that they leave behind, or sadaqatun jariyah, or that continuous charity that they leave behind, whether it be for a tree or well that the people benefit from, or a masjid, or something of good in which the people can utilize, whether it be necessities in their life, on their daily needs, or in the religion. طيب. So those are the what? How many affairs are there? We just mentioned 5. تفضل. Dua, supplication. Supplication. طيب. The point of what we're going to discuss in this hadith is the second. The second one, which is, notice this hadith, if you look in your books, this is general. Right, everyone? Isn't this narration general? It says, whoever dies and upon him to fast, then his wali fast for him. Right. What a person would think about this hadith, what would you think, everyone? That's general for any type of fast. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? You would think that this narration is general for any type of fast. Right. We said that fasting breaks down, in regards to what we're discussing now, into 2 types. In regards to this matter, even those other categories for other different reasons, but I'm sticking strictly to what we're talking about now. And which we're speaking about now, fasting breaks down into 2 categories. Fasting of what is obligatory bi asl shara', by the origin of the Kitab and Sunnah, meaning what Allah made obligatory, such as fasting of Ramadan, the fasting of expiation. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry everyone, astaghfirullah. I mean in the fasting of Ramadan. The fasting of Ramadan, that's it. As far as the kafara, that was due to something you did. But as far as what is binding upon everyone. So something that was made obligatory by asl shara', by the origin of Kitab and Sunnah, of what was made obligatory. Such as, like we said, the month of Ramadan. That's something that's written upon everyone to do without their own choice. Then you have another fast, which is something you made obligatory upon yourself, or you're the reason for it. If you want to say, you're the reason for it. Or you made it obligatory upon yourself. Or you're the reason for it. Meaning Allah in its origin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not make it obligatory upon you. But either you're the reason for it, or you made it obligatory upon yourself. Such as, the example of that is, Siyam an-Nadhr. The fasting of what? The fasting of an oath, or vow that you took. Based upon this narration here, you would think that this narration of Aisha, if you look in your books, everyone, is comprehensive for both categories. Doesn't matter. Right or wrong? Or if you want to say all categories of fasting, doesn't matter. Whether it be, matter of fact, let me give a little bit more details. Whether it be the month of Ramadan, or whether it be any fasting that is obligatory, whether it be Siyam al-Nadhr or Siyam al-Kaffara. That is the thing I forgot to give everyone. If you notice in the second category, everyone, I said you're the reason for it. The reason for it is the fast of an expiation. What they call siyam kafara. Where you fell into something and you have to what? Have to expiate it due to what? Some type of fast. Or something, for example, in Hajj. In Hajj. As we know, in Hajj, if you have a adha or harm upon your head and you had to wear something, then you have to put forth a what? You have to wear something on your head. And we know in the state of ihram, it's impermissible for a man to cover his head. But if they had some sickness and they had to cut their hair or what have you, then they had to put forth a fidya. A fidya. A fidya is some type of compensation. That's something due to yourself, because of yourself. Meaning, in its origin, it wasn't obligatory, but something happened to you that caused it to be obligatory. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? Such as for Hajj, and you had a harm upon your head, meaning you had some type of sickness, so you had to cut your hair before the time came for you to cut it, or you had to cover it, or what have you. Then we know you had to put forth a fidya. A fidya meaning a compensation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that in His book, 3 days during Hajj and 7 when you return back to your family. That type of fast, all those different types of fasts that we're mentioning here, you would think that what? This hadith is comprehensive for all of them. Doesn't matter. Not given any exception. Whether it's a fast of Ramadan, whether it's a fast of expiation, or whether it's a fast of another or oath or what have you. It doesn't matter. It seems that this hadith here is what? Is generalizing every what? Fast that a person did not have the chance to perform before they died. Meaning, when they died, they still had the what? They still have fasting that they had to what? To make up. That's what you would think, based upon this hadith. So this hadith here, you would think that is what? Is generalizing every type of what? Fast. Right or wrong? If you look at it, it says, if he dies and it's upon him fasting, his wali or his heirs fast for him. So you think that narration is generalizing every fast. Doesn't matter. That's the point of discussion. Is it a specific fast, or is it generalizing every fast that is obligatory? No, it's kind of rhetorical right now. But that's just what it's saying right now. What, everyone? That's the point of discussion. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying? طيب. Based upon the great Imam Al-Albani, rahimahullah, he mentioned the same narration, because this narration is authentic. It's in Bukhari and Muslim. It's in Bukhari and Muslim with the exact same wording. It's in the Bukhari and Muslim, they agree in the wording. طيب. However, the great Imam Al-Albani brought details in this regard. He says, the narration upon, of course, we have Aisha, right? She's the one that narrated the hadith. So we know in science of hadith that the one who narrates is more knowledgeable of what they're narrating. So if they was to explain what is the meaning of it, then we would give precedence to how they understood the hadith more than anyone else. Because they're the one that narrated it, and they're the one that also explained it in certain cases. And Aisha explained this narration. That's what we're going to talk about. Also, we have another narration, Ibn Abbas. طيب. Another narration, Ibn Abbas explaining this hadith. I'll just say it quickly in English because we got time. There was a woman that she had boarded a boat to sail across the sea. So she made a vow. She made a vow. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saves me in this trip, then I will fast a complete month. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved her, but she did not fast until she died. So her relatives came. فَجَاءَتْ قَرَابَةٌ لَهَا. Relatives came to her, either her sister or her daughter, to the Messenger of Allah, and they mentioned that to him. He said, do you not see, if it was upon her a debt, would you not pay it off? They said, yes, for the debt of Allah is more deserving that it be fulfilled. the depth of Allah is more deserving that it be fulfilled. What is this narration speaking about? What type of fast? What type of fast? She made a vow, huh? Siyam an-nadhr. Siyam an-nadhr. طيب. There's another narration on the authority of Sa'id ibn Ubadah. He says that he sought a religious ruling from the Messenger of Allah. He said, my mother passed away and it was upon her nadhr. So this is clear. Nadhr. She took a vow. So the Messenger of Allah said, make it up for her. اقضيه عنها. طيب. This is what the great Imam Al-Albani goes on to say. He said, these narrations are صريحة الدلالة. They are clear in its indication for the legislation of one's family member or heirs or the ones who inherited or ones in their family, for them to make up their fast upon the one who died. Which type of fast? The fast of nadhr, the fast of a vow. Now listen to what he goes on to say. He said the first hadith is an indication in its generality that is comprehensive for every type of fast, every type of obligatory fast. He says, however, بإطلاقه على شيء زائد على ذلك وهو أنه يصوم عنه صوم الفرض أيضا. So every type of obligatory fast will be understood from this particular what? Hadith, of which is in your books. He said, however, he said, and that is the madhab of Imam al-Shafi'i. Is a little bit more details. I don't want to get too knee deep into it. As you'll find, Imam al-Shafi'i mentions that, and also Ibn Hazm al-Zahiri, and other than that. However, this is what he goes on to say. He says, however, the great Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah, which is mentioned of Abu Dawood, because we know Abu Dawood from his shuyukh, or from the scholars that he took knowledge from, is Imam Ahl Sunnah Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Abu Dawood, Sulaiman ibn Ash'ath al-Sijistani, Sahib al-Sunnah, Sahib al-Sunnah, Sunnah Abi Dawood, rahimahullah. From his shuyukh was Imam Ahmad. And he asked him in his masail about this particular matter in your hadith, in this narration of Buloogh Al-Maraam, about what we're discussing now. He says, I heard Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Abu Dawood is saying this, Sulaiman ibn Ash'ath al-Sijistani. He's saying, Ahmad ibn Hanbal قال, لا يصام عن الميت إلا في النذر. He says, no one can fast in the place of the deceased except in nadhr, except in the oath or vow he took. طيب. So now listen to what goes on to say. So now you will understand that the hadith is mentioned in your books is generalizing. But we're taking what they call what is generalizes is applied to what restricts it. And these narrations restrict the general ruling. Is it clear what I'm saying? This narration restricts the general ruling of it only being for what? Siyam an-nadhr. You're just fasting. That's the reason why you're getting in right now. These narrations of Ibn Abbas restricts the generality of what's in your books. That hadith is general. What is general is applied to what is what? To what restricts it. It applies to what restricts it. So it goes on to say. He says, now I'm going to bring the narration of Aisha. What does she say? She says, أقضيه عنها قالت لا بل تصدقي عنها مكان كل يوم نصف الصاع على كل مسكين. So now let's go on to see what the narrator of Amrah asks our mother Aisha. So what is the tafsir of Aisha? Don't forget, brothers, to pray your 2 rakats before you come in. For Amrah, that it says that our mother, the mother Aisha radiallahu anha, that she said, a woman asked her, do I make up her fast for her? She died She's not talking about siyam an-nadhr. She's talking about something else. Let's just say she has some days of Ramadan made up, or she had to, for example, months of Ramadan. Or let's just say she died in the middle of Ramadan. Or maybe it was some days she had to make up or what have you. So Aisha said to her, no, rather give in her place sadaqah. Give isabel tasaddaqi anha. Now listen to what it says. Give in her place sadaqah. Just listen, everyone. I don't want no one's attention to be diverted. Give in her place sadaqah, in every place a half of a sa' upon every poor person. Give in her place sadaqah. And in its place a half of a sa' upon a person who's impoverished or poor. So Aisha here is making a what? If you want to just sum up everything, Aisha is upon the same understanding that Imam Ahmed mentioned. She's saying that the meaning of the hadith, which is in your books, is only for what? It's only for what, everyone? Siyam an-nadhr. And that if it's for something else, then that person does not what? They do not fast in their place. Is it clear what I'm saying, or is it not clear? طيب, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to bring some other clarification. He says, no, give in the sadaqah in her place. In every place, a half of a sa' upon every person that is impoverished. أخرجه الطحاوي وابن حزم واللفظ له بإسناد قال ابن التركماني صحيح وضعفه البيهقي ثم العسقلاني فإن كان أراد تضعيفه من هذا الوجه فلا وجه له. To the end of it. طيب, there's another narration on the upon Sa'id ibn Jubair, and we know from his that Sa'id ibn Jubair took the tafsir directly from Tarjuman al-Quran Ibn Abbas. He says, now Ibn Abbas, إذا مرض الرجل في رمضان ثم مات ولم يصم أطعم عنه ولم يكن عليه قضاء وإن كان عليه نظر قضى عنه وليه. This is what Ibn Abbas says. If a man was to die or become sick in Ramadan, notice that Ibn Abbas, and I want everyone to be very attentive of what I'm saying, that they die and it's upon them fasting of what is obligatory, but it's not another. It's not another. But they did not fast due to a justifiable excuse, due to something that was legislated, or due to something that was an allowance. Notice he said they were sick. They got sick in Ramadan. Isn't that not an allowance for you to break your fast? Jade. So they became sick in the month of Ramadan. Then they died, but they did not get a chance to make up that day yet because it's still Ramadan. So they died on Ramadan. So they didn't what? Fast to make up those days. Type, what does he do? Listen to Ibn Abbas. Then if that person is that the case, أطعم عنه ولم يكن عليه قضاء. Then that person who's his heirs or the one in his family just what? Feeds for him or gives a sadaqah where they feed someone for him. And he does not have to make up his fast for him in that regard. Why? Because it's not what, everyone? Another. However, Ibn Abbas says, but however, if it's upon him another, فَقَضَى عَنْهُ وَلِيُّهُ. In that case, then the wali or his heirs or the one in his family, what? Makes it up for him. Is it clear what I'm saying? طيب. The great Imam Al-Albani, he goes on to say, وَهَذَا التَّفْصِيلُ الَّذِي ذَهَبَتْ إِلَيْهِ أُمُّ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وحبر الأمة ابن عباس وتابعهما إمام السنة أحمد بن حنبل هو الذي تطمئن إليه النفس. This is the position also, everyone, of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, I'm about to read his position, and his tilmeed Ibn al-Qayyim is taking the same exact position. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? You guys have to bring your books next time. It's very important. Your books and e-books, pens, everything. طيب. No, I'm talking, not everyone. I probably see what you don't see. طيب. So, he says that these details in which our mother Aisha, this is what she understood. And also the scholar of the Ummah Ibn Abbas, Tarjuman al-Quran, and also Imam Ahlus Sunnah Ahmad ibn Hanbal also agrees. And he says, and this is the position of what oneself finds ease with, and which also one's chest accepts, and it is the most the most just of positions and statements. Why? Because it is working and applying all the narrations of the Prophet ﷺ without disregarding any other one, or without disregarding any narration that came authentically reported from him ﷺ. And we know that it's best to apply all the ahadith instead of canceling out one of them. And this narration allows all of the narrations to be applied. So he said, this is the correct understanding. It says, لَهَا خَاصَةُ الْحَدِيث الْأَوَّلِ. So you find that the narrator of the hadith is Aisha, our mother. And she is the one that narrated it. And she's the one that also gave the understanding of it. And we know that the narrator of the hadith is more knowledgeable of what they narrate. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So not only is she the narrator of the hadith in your books, she's also the one that explained it. Abdul Mateen, I think. She's also the one that everyone? Not only narrated, but she's also everyone? She explained it. She explained it. And we know that Rawiyat al-Hadith adra bima rawa. The narrator of the hadith are most knowledgeable of what they narrate. Meaning they know what they're narrating, but they also know its meaning, or what it indicates. So, this was the meaning of Aisha. So now let's go on to what Ibn al-Qayyim mentions. Ibn al-Qayyim goes on to say, he says, he brings a little bit of the khilaf in it. At any rate, he says, if a person was to die, or he mentions also firstly the meaning of what Aisha, our mother, mentioned. Aisha, he brings her understanding. So he then goes on to say, يُصَامَ عَنْهُ النَّظَرْ دُونَ الْفَرْضِ الْأَصْلِ. He said, for verily the oath that one takes, or the vow that they take, one should make it up besides or excluding the obligatory fast that's due to the origin of Kitab and Sunnah. You understand, everyone? As far as in regards to what's been obliged or obligation in the origin of Kitab and Sunnah, then that is that person does not fast for them. If, like I said, and this is a key point that I want everyone to understand, and if you can, write it down. If they left it off, the obligation due to an excuse that excused them and pardoned them. But if they left it off out of severe negligence, then in that case, you can't do anything for them. Is it clear what I'm saying? If they did it out of severe negligence, then you cannot feed anyone for them or do anything. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That is a key point you need to understand. If they did it out of tafriq, severe negligence, then you cannot feed for them. But keep in mind, we said feeding for them, that's only pertaining to what type of fast, everyone? If they was to die and they had some fast, they did not have the chance to make up, but they left it off due to something legislated or due to an allowance, that pardoned them for that fast, not due to negligence. If that's the case, then one feeds for the person. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? I need to repeat it one more time. I'll say it again. I'll say it one more time. Right now, the discussion is, we're discussing about if the person has now had, they died and they left off fasting in the month of Ramadan. that is a type of fast due to the origin of Kitab and Sunnah. Right or wrong? طيب. You left off fast. Let's just say you traveled. Traveling is an allowance for you to what? Leave off fasting for that particular day, right? طيب. You died. Let's just say you, in the middle of your travels, you died. Here in this instance, did you die? Or did you not fast due to negligence or due to the fact you took an allowance? You took an allowance. طيب. Here in this instance, what happened? Here, your family would feed for you. Let's just say now, it's the day tomorrow, Ramadan. I don't feel like fasting today. I just don't feel like it. Is there a particular reason? You from the Kitab and Sunnah? You sick? No, I just don't feel like it. What is he doing? Negligent. طيب. Here in this instance, if he was to die, what would you do for him? Nothing. Is it clear? Due to severe negligence, what? Nothing is done for him. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Same thing as the rest of other ibadat. And this is what I wanted to clarify from last year, because I just remembered. Because a person asked me, what do you mean? Let's just say a person wasn't religious. He was Muslim, but he's in the street. He didn't fast for 5 years straight, 6 years straight, nor did he pray, due to severe negligence. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't inspire him to have uprightness in himself. So he's neglectful in his duties. طيب. Does he have to now make up all those years that passed? Or all those salawat that passed? Or just tawbah sufficed? طيب. Once he made tawbah, does he have to make up all those fasting? Does he have to make up all those prayers? No. Due to the fact that even if he did it, it still would not what? Benefit him. Why? Because of that severe what? Negligence. You understand what, everyone? طيب. Same here. That's what we're talking about now. So let's return back to what we're talking about discussing. So what was obligatory due to the origin of Kitab and Sunnah? If one left off fasting due to an allowance that he took from Allah, and he died, and it was upon him to make that up, a person would not make up their fast. Is it clear what I'm saying? However, they would what? Feed for them, and their place feed for them. That's it. As far as in regards to nadhr of what is an oath, then the person will what? Fast for them. Because that is something that's not an obligation due to the origin of Kitab and Sunnah. Rather, that is something that he binded upon his or herself. And I'll mention exactly what Ibn al-Qayyim, then we'll return back to the book. It goes on to say, now this is Ibn al-Qayyim. He goes on to say exactly what we mentioned it. He says, the statement of Ibn Abbas and his companions, such as Sa'id ibn Jubair, he said that is what's correct. That's what Ibn al-Qayyim goes on to say. He said the obligation of fasting, he says, is similar. He said the obligation of which is in Kitab and Sunnah, of the origin of Kitab and Sunnah. He says is similar to what? To the prayer. It's similar to what? The prayer. Meaning no one can pray for anyone. Meaning I want you for Fajr, I don't feel like praying it, pray for me. Or if I die, someone pray in my place. No. It's done. Time is up. You understand, everyone? So listen what he goes on to say. No one can pray in the prayer or in the place of the prayer for anyone. Nor وَلَا يُسْلِمُ أَحَدٌ عَنْ أَحَدٍ فَكَذَلِكَ, likewise fasting. It's similar to that. Once they die, that's it. The obligation stops for them due to their what? Their time has come as far as for death. He says, in regards to nadhr, he said, because it's an obligation in which is similar to what? And this is another key point and another benefit I want everyone to listen to. He says, nadhr or an oath or vow is different because the Messenger of Allah resembled it to a what? To a depth. To a depth. Because we know the narration of what? Of the narration we just talked about, which is the hadith of Ibn Abbas and also the hadith of Sa'id ibn Ubadah. He says, do you not see if it was upon your mother a debt, wouldn't you not pay it off for them? She said, and then he said, yes. He says, فَقْضِهِ عَنْهُ. Or another narration, اقضيه فالله أحق أن يقضى. Make it up or pay it off, meaning that debt, for verily Allah is more deserving that it be fulfilled, meaning the debt of Allah should be fulfilled. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So he says, goes on to say, he says, for verily it is an obligation which is upon the person which is similar to the level of a debt that has to be paid off. فَيُقْبَلُ قَضَاءُ الْوَلِيِّ. In this instance, the person in their family or their heirs likewise have to what? Pay off that debt. Due to this reason. Why, everyone? Due to this. Because when a person dies, you have to realize that not only do you receive their inheritance, in your family member or your wife or what have you, your spouse, but you also inherit their what? Their debts. As they say, al-ghanam, that's the qa'idah. The qa'idah and the principle is al-ghanam bil-gharm. The benefit is also with the gharm. It's also with the what? The benefit comes along with it, also the what? The depth that comes along with it. Al-ghanam bil-gharm. You become the gharim. You also inherit their what? Their debts. So that's what they're saying here. So now, that's the reason why the wali will what? Make up that debt. Because now, like we said, siyam another is similar to a debt. So listen what he goes on to say, Ibn al-Qayyim. So Ibn al-Qayyim goes on to say right now, he says it's like a debt. And for that reason, is now the wali, he accepts it. He has to pay it off for them. He says, and this is mahdul fiqh. This is pure, absolute, what? Upright, clear, correct jurisprudence and understanding. He said, وَطَرْدُ هَذَا أَنَّهُ لَا يَحُجُّ عَنْ وَلَا يُزَكِّي عَنْ إِلَّا إِذَا كَانَ مَعْذُورًا بِالتَّخِيرِ. Just as I just mentioned. كَمَا يُطْعِمُ الْوَلِيِّ عَمَّنْ أَفْطَرَ فِي رَمَضَانِ لِعُذْرٍ. He says, for no one, he says also what comes along with that, no one can make hajj for anyone. Listen what he says. You cannot make hajj in the place of anyone, nor give sadaqah in the place of anyone, or give zakat in the place of anyone, except if they are excused due to an allowance or permission in kitab and sunnah for them leaving it off or putting it off. Is it clear what I'm saying? He says, just as the wali feeds for the one who broke the fast on Ramadan due to an excuse. They got sick, they were traveling, to the end of it. So, they fed for them in their place. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? As for the one who's neglectful without any excuse at all, for verily someone performing it in their place, the duties of Allah in which they were negligent in, for verily in that case, then what? Nothing can be what? Done for them. وَكَانَ هُوَ الْمَأْمُورُ بِهَا ابْتِلَاءً امْتِحَانًا دُونَ وَلِيٍّ فَلَا تَنْفَعُ تَوْبَةُ أَحَدٍ عَنْ أَحَدٍ وَلَا إِسْلَامُهُ عَنْهُ وَلَا أَدَاءُ الصَّلَاةِ عَنْهُ وَلَا غَيْرُهَا مِنْ فَرَائِضِ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَرَّطَ فِيهَا حَتَّى مَاتَ. Jayyid. He says, and this is what was been commanded with as a test and a tribulation, besides the person who's the wali. He said, for verily the tawbah, the repentance of no one can make repentance for someone else, nor someone else can be Muslim for someone else, or pray their obligatory prayers for someone else, of the different duties of Allah in which that person was what? Negligent in until they died. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it crystal clear so far? So far so good. طيب. So if we want to sum up this hadith here, because I just gave everyone a lot of details, probably give everyone a headache, even though they're fasting. It's good. طيب. So the first meaning of the hadith is that the narration in your books here generalizes every type of obligatory fast. Is that correct? Generalizes every obligatory fast? No, we said that exactly. We're saying, I'm going to just sum it up. That what is obligatory for the origin of Kitab and Sunnah, if the person dies and they left it off out of something legislated or an allowance that they took, then what does the person do? Feed for them. Because, like we said, no one can pray for anyone in the place of anyone. No one can fast in the place for anyone, except with the exceptions we gave, nor anything of any action of what a person does in their body as far as ibadat, can do it in the case of what? In the case of negligence. But in the case of what? Fasting is something different. If they were what? Did it and they were excused from something of the origin of Kitab and Sunnah. طيب. Likewise, similar to that, fasting is nothing of someone doing it for you can be applicable here. Of fasting, as far as what has been obligatory in the origin of Kitab and Sunnah. For verily the dead does not fast in their place in that regard. He says, but however, if the person was to die and it was upon them this, even though they were excused and pardoned, then they would just feed for them and they would take it from their estate. They would take it from their estate that they left of inheritance and they would feed some people with it. And they would feed with them a half of a sa'. And this is the choice and the statement of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah and his Tilmid and the great Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, that they take this position. And they say, as far as the first statement that generalizes it, he said that it's applied to what restricts it, which is what? The details we just gave, which is siyam another, and that's it. And that's, I don't want to keep going. Summed it up, I don't want to keep giving them no more details than that. طيب. Ibn al-Qayyim gives a lot of other details in Zad al-Ma'ad fi khayri hadi al-ibad. He gives them more details, but we'll suffice with what we just mentioned. I think that's enough. I think that is enough. And for that, from this, we have concluded the chapter. Finish. Done. Finish the chapter, and we don't have nothing left. Unless someone has any questions in regards to what's been mentioned. But other than that, we've finished the chapter. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah alladhi tatimmu bi ni'matihi as-salihat. Jayyid. You're the kids. Oh, you guys were listening online on your way here? All right, Jayyid. Fine. Any questions? Kafara. There's different ahkam, there's different things